What if I told you that you could produce 90 pounds of honey the very first year from the nuke that you got in the spring? Not only 90 pounds of honey, but also tons of drawn comb, and on top of 90 pounds of honey. Well, I did it last year, and I know you can do it too, but it takes very strategic practices, and I'm going to make a video here today showing you the step-by-step process on how I did it so that you can do it too. Let's share this together. Get right into it. Day one, you get your nuke. You have 4.5 frames of drawn comb, and I hope you can have some other drawn comb laying around somewhere, somehow, that you can give to your new nuke. Your little nuke that you just got. It's a little overwhelmed with all it has to do to go from this to 90 pounds of honey. So we got to start feeding heavily before the nectar flow gets here. So you have 1-to-1 sugar water. Listen, it takes 8 to 10 pounds of honey to make 1 pound of wax, and up to 2 pounds of honey just to get 1 sheet of brood. How many sheets of brood are we trying to get before the nectar flow? A lot. So we have to stimulate them with 1-to-1 sugar water and to encourage them to continue to produce a bunch of brood, because that's key. That's key right there. Provide a feeder right away. Get that 1-to-1 sugar rolling immediately. We need some comb, and that is the first step to getting your colony big enough to have a massive robust colony by the time the nectar flow hits to produce that honey. But it starts here. It starts right now. All right, let's say you don't have drawn comb and you have sheets of foundation. You want your bees to draw out your comb draw out your frames quickly. Make sure that your frames are waxed heavily. A lot of times you order a plastic frame foundation, it says wax, especially off of Amazon. They spray a thin layer of wax and it doesn't do anything. I mean, some say if you have a really big flow, it's usually wonky comb either way, from my experience. Get a pound of wax, melt it down, and get a little paint roller and roll it on these frames. You make sure the wax is nice and hot. You don't want to cake it on there like a birthday cake. Like, we just want to get it nice, heavily rolled on there. Those bees will thank you so much, and they will pay you back with quick, fast, efficient drawn comb. All right, it's time to prepare for the nectar flow. So by preparing for it, we got to have tons of brood, tons of some foragers, and a good laying queen that's continuing to push the workers to produce more comb. Because that brood right there, that is your future comb makers, and that is your future honey makers right there. So we have to keep that in our focus. Okay, let me explain a little bit how much drawn comb that I had when I started out my nuke. Okay, of course I started out with my nuke, and I was running 8-frame beehives. So my first box was all drawn comb, including the nuke. My second box I added on a little bit later. That was about 40% drawn comb, and then I added a third deep box with no drawn comb, and then I added a super with no drawn comb. There's 4 boxes that I had stacked up all there at once, and they all drew that out completely chock full of drawn comb. I took off the top 2 boxes later on in the season after they drew those frames out, and I added another deep box with all new frames, and they drew that out about 15% of drawn comb. And I was like, this is awesome. This will get me going great next year in my new split I made. Also, out of that same beehive that I got 90 pounds of honey with. It was a small split, but I got them going too. I don't know about you, but I closely study my bees. I am watching them every day. I have a Ring camera out there watching my bees, and I'm constantly checking them. Are they really active today? Why are they active today? What flowers are they going for? What's blooming right now? All these things matter when you're trying to figure out when the flow is starting to hit. And thankfully, I was watching all these frames every day. Not every day, but very, very frequently as I was feeding them. They were drawing out that comb. I was watching, and they would be light as a feather, just dry comb. They would put a little bit here and there. Let's just say that they put a little bit of sugar water right here, they're not storing it right there. They're just putting it right there out for efficiency of consumption. It's like me when I'm working. I work in construction. I don't like taking lunch breaks, but it doesn't mean I'm not eating. I will take a bite of food and continue to work, and then I'll take another bite of food and continue to work. It's the same thing. But the frames, you have to continue to know they're still light. I'll come back the next day, and that whole section will be completely dry again, and there might be a little bit over here. But about 2 weeks before the flow, I did stop feeding, and those frames were dry. And I was a little worried. I was like, oh, I should be, maybe I should feed, maybe, but I didn't. And before I knew it, boom, the nectar hit hard. And then I pulled out frames, and yeah, they were storing it, and that was so beautiful. But I understand not everybody has as much time to monitor as extensively as I was, and that's fine. I understand that. So if you want to knock out any possible glimpse of a drop of sugar water being in your super box before the honey flow, about 2 weeks before the nectar flow hits, take that super off and stop feeding, and go ahead and run those frames to the extractor. At least you have all these frames full of drawn comb at best. That is awesome. Drawn comb is gold, especially when you're trying to get honey. So yeah, that will knock out any chances of there being any sugar. Go ahead and extract them, wait 2 weeks, and then put it back on, and hopefully you timed it right. You know when your nectar flow is, where the bees will fill that up with honey. So obviously I don't know what your environment is like, what flowers are blooming, what times of years, to know when the flow starts for you. But timing is everything when you're targeting maximum production of drawn comb and max production of honey. And that's why it's crucial to understand when your flow starts, when you can make the maximum amount of honey for you. So with knowing that, we can prepare as best as possible. All right, moving right along, you've harvested your honey. Don't forget, your bees still need resources to get you through the winter. So we have to make sure we leave them that, or feed them that. If you do not have a fall flow, like I don't depend on a fall flow, so I have to feed sugar water until they get strong enough built, and so that they have enough honey. One crucial mistake I did, believe it or not, I do make mistakes. I was using a frame feeder, and they were building up pretty strong. The weight was gaining great. This is after I already harvested 90 pounds of honey, I might add. I gave them a frame feeder and fed them 3-to-1. Something I have not tried, something I couldn't find a lot of information on. I put it in a frame feeder, and this is what happened. The bees went down there to drink out of it, and they drowned. And so some of the bees went there and died and contaminated the water, the sugar syrup. And when I went out there, the frame felt full. I was like, okay, we're good to go. No, the bees contaminated it, and the bees weren't taking it down. In return, they weren't storing it. They weren't storing resources, and instead they started consuming their own resources. And I was in that misunderstanding, thinking that they just had plenty of syrup left. So after I realized it, went back to 2-to-1, and thankfully I got them up to about, not quite to where I was hoping, but thankfully with sugar bricks and candy boards, that I think we're going to be good to go. But I did not get the colony as strong as I was hoping for. That is something that you can learn, that I can learn. Never feed 3-to-1. If you do feed 3-to-1 and it's successful, drop a comment. Tell me how you do it, because I would love to learn how you do it successfully.